This week in games is the PlayStation 6 ripping off the Nintendo Switch, Perfect Dark cancellation leads to more layoffs, and our review of Metal Gear Delta Snake Eater. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 265. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Friends, it's a beautiful day.
It's so beautiful,
Beautiful
Connor.
day.
It's so beautiful. Connor, I've been looking forward to this day all fucking week. And let me tell you why. Because I've been playing a little thing called Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I've rolled credits. I'm working on a second playthrough. I've done all the snakes and monkeys things. We're going to get into it here in a minute. But I'm very, very excited because at the last topic of today, we are going to be reviewing Delta Snake Eater. And I'm just so excited to talk more about Snake Eater. It's the second time this year I get to review Snake Eater.
I know.
You know?
Glorious, huh?
Been
Only time.
It's been the highlight of my year. These two moments, you know what I mean? Anyways, Connor, how you doing this week?
It's pathetic. It's good. Very good. I have totaled my car. Got a job.
Okay,
There you go.
look at you.
So, one good thing.
One good thing.
But yeah, it's been...
So I actually haven't gotten clarity on this with you. Have you been still using that rental car?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because that was like a question thing as well. Are you like paying out of pocket for it now? Because that was a thing.
I'm probably going to starting today.
Oh, okay.
Just for a day, but...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have you picked a new car?
I've selected a couple of things to
Okay.
check out. Not...
Is this tomorrow's?
Locking in.
This is tomorrow's conquest? Then
It
I
is,
assume?
yes.
Okay.
Kind of. I'm testing a car. That's not the exact car I would be aiming for, but it's the same type.
Same make and model, just like not the one that you're gonna end up with.
Yeah. So
Fair enough.
just testing out the waters.
Could be a little fishy because you never know. Each car is different, has their own problems.
The other car, the car that I would be getting is better. So I guess if there's something wrong with this one, I guess that's true. I could say I might just be like, well, maybe it'll be better in the better one, but who knows? Yeah, I guess that could mess things up. But what else do I got?
What else do you got? Well, Connor, you got this podcast.
I do.
This is, of course, the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, 2 pennies, if you will. Excuse me. And we give you our 2 cents on them. Make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment down below so that you can put in your own audience 2 pennies and your own 2 cents into the show. We didn't have any super great comments this week, so do better next time, fuckers.
It's always your fault. The viewer's fault.
The viewer, yeah,
sorry.
100%. Anyways, Connor,
Yes.
we're gonna move into our first topic of
Right
the day.
away.
Yeah,
Me.
right away. Yeah,
Me going into that first topic.
100%. So this is your first penny of the day. Go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Perfect Dark cancellation leads to layoffs at Crystal Dynamics. A LinkedIn post from Crystal Dynamics announced an unspecified number of employees have been laid off from the company following the canceled reboot of Perfect Dark in early July. Quote, "Today we made the very difficult decision to part ways with a number of our talented colleagues as the result of evolving business conditions. This decision was not made lightly. It was necessary, however, to ensure the long-term health of our studio and core creative priorities in a continually shifting market." To those impacted, we recognize and thank you for your hard work, talent, and passion. We are committed to offering the full extent of support and resources at our disposal during this transition. To our teams, players, and partners, thank you for your continued support as we build a creative, sustainable, and resilient tomorrow together. This includes the future of Tomb Raider, which remains unaffected by this decision. End quote. Despite not directly referring to Perfect Dark as the source of the layoffs, IGN reporter Rebecca Valentine discovered 2 posts from now former developers that show both devs, Maja Oberg and Chris Sharp, were working on the title. The initiative developer behind Perfect Dark was shut down alongside their project by Microsoft, despite having created no other games in the past. Crystal Dynamics would begin assisting with development in 2021, a year before being acquired by Embracer Group, where the collaboration with the initiative continued until the cancellation. Crystal Dynamics laid off 17 employees in March to, quote, "better align our current business needs and the studio's future success," end quote. La-di-da-di-da. the trend we constantly seen over and over and over, where a decision is made above the devs' heads to cancel a project, to delay a project, whatever you have, and then it's decided later on down the line they're going to get fired because of that said change. Took a little bit longer in this case, seeing as how it's been 2 months now until we saw some kind of effect happen at Crystal Dynamics as a result of the shutdown. But here it is. I don't know how many. I would hope, since they did 17 last time, it's around that same number. I don't know how many employees Crystal Dynamics has.
How involved was Crystal Dynamics in the Perfect Dark? We
Yeah.
had an idea that at some point it kind of became a bit of a Crystal Dynamics project, and Crystal eventually kind of took the lead on that.
Mm-hmm.
I would make a guess that a good number of those devs who were working on Perfect Dark are the ones who are getting laid off here.
Yes.
And it may not be all of them. It may only be a few. We don't know. We don't have exact numbers here. But, I mean, I would guess that, hey, we devoted resources and time and employees to this project, and then it all fell through. The money we were thinking of getting on the back end, or however that deal formulated between Microsoft and Embracer, listen, we gotta make cuts too now because it all went away. It all failed. So this, I would say this is still more. I would say this is just another example of Microsoft just not managing their studios correctly, and now you're affecting other studios that you aren't in control of. You're and we talked about this after the last this last round of layoffs, when these studios were closed, when the projects were canceled. To say, hey, you have business deals with other companies here. You're affecting them now. This isn't just your fuck up. This is a fuck up that is extending past the barriers of your own company now. So what the fuck are you doing over there?
Tavin, they have to keep expanding AI and helping commit a genocide. Otherwise, what
are we in this for? What are we in this for?
They have
Art?
to save up money. Yes, it's all about money. Me.
Yeah, this is super unfortunate. I don't think it's the most
horrible.
No,
layoffs.
It's horrible, but I think I don't think it's the most unexpected thing. I think
Sure, yeah.
when you told me this was happening, I would have looked at that and been like, all right, well, Crystal Dynamics is going to take the brunt of this. At least it seems like this is not affecting Tomb Raider. So hopefully whatever this Tomb Raider project is, they can get it off the ground and make it seem nice and solid.
Well, the developers that I referenced in the piece, Sharp and Oberg, in the case of Sharp, he was a level designer. Oberg, I don't think she mentioned what she did in her LinkedIn, or she posted to Blue Sky. That's why I didn't know. But yeah, they clearly worked on that on that title, solely worked on that. So they probably were brought along for that, and I'm assuming that's who was laid off. Those that were hired expressly to get Perfect Dark out
to work on that.
Yeah, but I hope it just wasn't too many.
Same.
Yeah.
Moving on, topic number 2. This is going to be my first penny of the day. PlayStation 6 rumors now indicate the console will be a portable device. Trusted leaker Moore's Law is Dead posted to his YouTube channel to report on specs for a supposed PlayStation 6 console that can be portable and dockable like that of a Nintendo Switch. The console will reportedly be backwards compatible with PS5 and PS4 games and come with a 16CU RDNA 5 iGPU. I don't know what any of that means. That operates at a 1.20 gigahertz in handheld mode and a 1.65 gigahertz in docked mode. It's described to be raw performance stronger than Microsoft's announced handheld, the Xbox Ally X, something MLID has asserted since the beginning of August, when rumors regarding to the Canis handheld began to sprout from a 2023 presentation.
Canis?
Sure. It's also said the console will cost much less than the Xbox Ally X, despite the exact price of the Xbox platform remaining unknown. Current speculation puts the Ally X at costing around $899, while the less advanced version, the ROG Xbox Ally, is placed at $549. Though little was elaborated on, it's possible an alternative version of the PS6 called the PS6S will be made available, comparable to Microsoft's cheaper current generation console, the Xbox Series S. MLID cites AMD documentation as his source. Something reinforced. MLID is
Moore's Law is dead.
Moore's Law is dead. We're throwing a lot of letters, a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Something reinforced by a prior reporting from Reuters after the hardware company beat out competitor Intel to design a chip for the PS6. Quote, console chip designs typically try to ensure compatibility with earlier versions of the system to allow users to run older games on the new hardware. The Reuters article reads, quote, moving from AMD, which made the PlayStation 5 chip, to Intel would have risked backwards compatibility, which was a subject of discussion between Intel and Sony engineers and executives, the sources said. While comparisons have been made to the Ally X, Bloomberg reported on the development of a Sony handheld console in late 2024, citing inside sources who claim Sony is specifically aiming to contend with the Nintendo.
I originally did Nintendo Switch, but then I was like, I'll change it.
Okay, with the Nintendo and their Switch rather than Microsoft. It was believed that if their portable platform can compete alongside Nintendo, it could, quote, counter any potential mobile hardware from Xbox maker Microsoft Core. Where there's smoke, there is fire.
Everyone's been moving to the handheld. It wasn't that long ago we discussed that there were some rumors about an Xbox handheld that obviously came into fruition with the Ally. And it makes sense for Microsoft because they were losing the
fruition.
Yeah, right.
You know, their handheld they shelved and said, we're not going to pursue this right now.
They're working with other people to get this hardware out. And so at first I was like, okay, here's a space they can lock down. It seems like something they would want to, dive into, seeing as how PlayStation has the console market effectively not locked down, because people obviously still buy Xbox Series X's and S's, but it won. In the
PlayStation has the lion's share if you don't look at the Nintendo Switch.
Exactly, yes. Which is why they're looking to try and fight them. I think they're not going to win, but they're trying to fight them. And their key is clearly the PS6, which I didn't think it was going to be a handheld. We kind of assumed that the PS6 was going to be a lot later out, and it wasn't going to be as big of a leap in advancement as the PS4 to the PS5 was. And it seems like that is the case, because they're kind of regressing, because it's not going to be as powerful as the PS5, but it's going to occupy its own space.
And this is where Tavin puts his theory cap on.
Yeah.
All of this is just Tavin hypothesizing. I would guess, the writing's been on the wall for years, but I would guess the time of the traditional console generation cycle is over.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's long dead. I think the last traditional console release was this last one, the PlayStation 5. So much to the point, I would hearken a bet that PlayStation is going to do away with the numbering system that they've had for their entire lifespan. I do not believe the PlayStation 6 will be called the PlayStation 6. I believe we're going to figure out a different type of title for it, whether it's just the PlayStation 2028, PlayStation... maybe it is a 6, but it's 6.0 or something like that, And this PlayStation, what do they call it? The PS6S or whatever this portable version is not the main console. Because PlayStation has assigned themselves as the people saying, hey, we want to have the console that is the most powerful. We want to have the console that is pushing the barriers. That is constantly pushing technology forward in how advanced we can make these games, right? That's what I believe PlayStation is hanging their hat on. But not everybody can afford the price tag that comes with that level of fidelity. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense to me for them to go, okay, we need to split our SKUs. We need to make a lane for people who want the highest graphical fidelity. We want people who want their consoles to be comparable to the latest and greatest PCs, right? Everything is a PC now.
Yeah.
So we need to stop thinking of them as generational cycles and start thinking of them as, oh, this is just the newest piece of hardware to make your overall system run better, right? Mm-hmm. That's what, and then instead we're just going to pre-package PCs and put them out I think this gap is actually going to shrink alongside with it. So while I don't believe that this is coming out until, they're saying 2027, I believe is what the sort of rumored dates are. We'll see. I believe 2028 is more likely.
I can't remember the sources, but they were saying, and I kind of discredited this when I was writing the story because it was from 2024, saying that both Xbox and PlayStation is a really reputable source. Take my word for it. The guy who can't remember his source. And they said that they weren't planning a release until 2028, both PlayStation and Xbox. But Xbox is now coming out with their handheld this year, presumably.
Yeah.
So I kind of tossed that out the window.
Things change.
But even so, that may be just for PlayStation. And they were just going along with what the usual life cycle of these things are, which is
Yeah.
when both of them come out at the same time with a new console.
Yes, but we've had PlayStation do their mid-generation refresh,
Yeah.
and if we use what happened with the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 4 Pro as a measuring stick for the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, we've still got a couple of years until the PS6. If that comparison is going to stay the same, which I don't think it will. So I could be wrong on dates 100% of the time. I think anything after this PS6, I think you could expect hardware updates every 2 years, maybe every year. You could expect new updates to new PlayStation consoles, which is why I think it's important for them to drop the numbers or have more advanced numbering, on their thing. And to the point to where, these are things that you buy in boxes. Moms go to Target to go buy one, right, for Christmas. So on the box of the PlayStation, it needs to list compatible with PS6, PS5, PS4 games. These are all the games that this console was compatible with. And eventually, when we get to whatever the equivalency of PS7 is, eventually, like with PCs, you're going to start seeing games drop off. So eventually, that PS4 generation will no longer be playable. Or maybe it will, because we live in a modern era. Who knows? And then streaming is right around the corner. You can effectively stream your games right now if your internet is just strong enough, which a good number of people have strong enough internet. We have strong enough internet for the most part to where the streaming process is mostly headache-free, There's still some delay. It's not one-to-one. The resolution drops all the time. But technology is only going to get better. The internet's only going to get faster. So streaming is around the corner.
Yeah.
For right now, for hardware, I want to download my games, and I want it to be as high fidelity as possible. I believe that is what the purpose of this PS6 is. This handheld thing, I believe to be a different SKU, because not everybody can afford or cares about the high-end thing. There's a huge market of people that's been proven by the success of both the Nintendo Switch and the Switch 2, and the moderate success of things like Steam Deck, and the I'm not going to call it heavy success, but definitely outperforming expectations of what we saw with PlayStation Portal. It is clear that there is a percentage of the audience in PlayStation communities that want to take their games on the go. And it's not in the sense of what we've seen before with things like the PSP and the PlayStation Vita. We're not getting lesser than versions anymore. I want the latest and greatest God of War on the go. And I want it without streaming. I want to be able to download it, take it with me, and go. I don't care if the handheld is less powerful than it is in docked mode. I just want to be able to continue that story, continue that process, and continue that gameplay experience. That is what I think is important to gamers now in 2020. What year are we in? 5. And so we'll see where all of this lands us. Maybe I had my dates wrong. Maybe the expected date was 26. I would not, whatever it is, I expect it for the year after that.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting anything till 27, 28. I think there was somewhere in the rumors when this thing was circulating of expected date of 26. We'll see. I could be wrong. But yeah, I think it's time for us to put to bed the idea of console generations. They just don't exist anymore. I mean, it's been the topic of conversation with the PlayStation 5. There's no PS5 exclusive games. What is next gen? The PlayStation 5 doesn't feel next gen. And I get it. We're at a point where the best we can offer is faster loading, which is great, but that's a subtle thing. It's not as noticeable to the naked eye, and for people, it's noticeable for us who are paying attention, but it's not noticeable for the regular gamer who's just using it in his spare time to have fun, right? It doesn't matter how fast I can fast travel in Spider-Man 2 to them, right? But for us who's paying attention, go, oh, wait, but this changes the game. It's just in a way that you wouldn't notice. So it's just a matter of those kinds of steps now. So yeah, PS6, expect it coming soon-ish. But whatever's after that, expect it I would hearken a guess of whatever they're saying is the next generation after that comes 3 years later instead of the usual 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's changing. It's no longer the same as it once was, that's for certain. Now they're at a point where they get to decide where it's going to go next.
100%. I'm also curious, how much did COVID push back the next generation? We saw it with the 2008 economic recession.
Recession.
That PS4 got pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was about a year. It got pushed back, maybe 2. So that PlayStation 3 generation was longer than any generation before it. And you can see it's because the world was in a recession at the time. So
As these people like to say, market conditions.
yeah,
Yes.
right. And so I'm curious is how much has COVID, if it has, elongated this generation that we're in, and does it matter? And is it because we're in the fluidity of technology state that we're in right now? Has it affected it at all? Because does it matter if everyone goes and buys a PlayStation 6 if they're still buying games on PS5 and the PS5 runs it just as well?
It does, yeah. It's the technological leaps are a lot shorter than it once was. To your point, COVID could have messed up with the PlayStation exclusives. As you said, it's not a big thing.
They undoubtedly did.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that could have just been them getting into this new world where we're moving away from exclusive. It's not the time where
no, I mean the process of development was affected.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
Games like we saw it with Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 was made in COVID.
Yeah.
And when it launched in a the performance of Spider-Man 2 was lesser than the performance of Spider-Man 1 at launch. There was a lot more glitches, saving issues. Your character would turn into the little white cube thing, and you would swing around as a white cube, all that type of stuff, right? And then you saw it across the board. A lot of games launched with a lot of technical issues at launch, right? I would expect that COVID is the reason that it's taking so long to get things like Marathon and Fair Games and Concord out the door. And when they do come out, they're not blowing our minds because devs didn't have time to innovate. They only had time to establish, you know, and that's all they had, you know. So I think this generation as a whole has been heavily marred by COVID. That's why we haven't seen Marvel's Wolverine, I would assume. That's why it seems like it took a long time for a lot of these games, probably like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I expect Final Fantasy VII Remake 3 will come a lot faster than Rebirth came.
More than 5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
4 years.
4 years, yeah. So we'll see, you know. I mean, there was a lot of asset creation that had to happen for Rebirth. I imagine there'll be a lot of asset flipping for Remake Part 3, but we'll see. And so, yeah, it's a fascinating time to pay attention to the industry in this state because a lot of the expectations and how we view our technology is changing drastically. And can the general public keep up with that? Can they understand that, hey, it's not the PlayStation 1, 2, 3 anymore. We are in PlayStation X. We are in PlayStation P, or that's a bad anagram. But we're in PlayStation Elite, you know, something. The PlayStation Pro, PlayStation Elite, PlayStation Superior. I don't know, you know, things like that. Or PlayStation 6.1, 6.2, 6.5, you know, things like that to where we go, oh, okay. And now we're in PS7, you know. What do these mean anymore? Not a whole lot. You know, you're going to get scales on the back of box of like, this machine plays everything backwards from 7 to like 6.5. This machine plays everything backwards from 7 to 4, you know, things like that, you know. And then what does the different SKUs for that mean? And honestly, if I'm a publisher, I don't care as much about hitting the high technology benchmarks. I care about how many copies can I sell. So we've seen there's still a good number of people on PlayStation 4 who have not transferred over to PlayStation 5. That's why things like Star Wars Jedi Survivor are getting last-gen updates. Star Wars Outlaws is about to get its PlayStation 4 release, right? We'll see how well that operates. But that's because there's money there. There's money in the hills, you know? And so at some point, the publishers are going, well, the general populace still only has a PlayStation 5. So we want our game to run on the PlayStation 5 the best, despite there being a PlayStation 6 out there.
Yeah,
it'd be great if everyone had the PlayStation 6, but that's just not the reality of the market. The market has changed. And, you know, eventually, through time, it's going to be like, hey, you got to upgrade. You know, same thing that we do with our PCs, same thing that we do with our cell phones, you know. Eventually, like, the technology just starts falling behind, you know, and so you have to update now. It's not a matter of when we update, and when you do decide to update, we have options. It's not just the one box anymore. It's the box that is super powerful but can't leave your house. It's the box that's less powerful but can leave your house. It's the box that isn't a box. It's a USB stick that you plug into your TV and you stream the games there. What do you want as the consumer? Overall, I think this is a net positive.
I think so as well. We'll see how this gets rolled out maybe in the next year. See which number's correct.
We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to our third topic of the day. Connor, your second penny of the day. Ah, man, this angle has fucking sucked the whole. Look at that. I'm gonna fix that. I'll fix it. Well, Connor, I'm so excited to talk about what this third topic is, but I'm also excited, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're sticking around for our review of Metal Gear Delta's coming in here in just a few minutes. All right, Connor, take it away.
PlayStation Studios CEO reflects on how failed game Concord turned into a lesson learned. In a Financial Times interview, PlayStation Studios CEO Hermen Hulst discussed how the flop of the expensive live service title Concord led PlayStation to adjust its production model, saying, quote, "I don't want teams to always play it safe, but I would like for us, when we fail, to fail early and cheaply," end quote. Well,
Wouldn't we all, Hulst?
Kind of wants to have his cake and eat it too, huh? Concord was shaping up to be a heavy hitter for PlayStation with an 8-year development time and development costs reportedly exceeding $200 million, only to release to horrible sales and a max player count of 697 on digital storefront Steam. PlayStation would ultimately shut down the game after only 14 days and offer full refunds to buyers. This has now resulted in PlayStation having a stricter testing process to weed out titles that may not be successes at launch, as well as increased group testing and studio collaboration. Quote, "We have since put in place much more rigorous and more frequent testing in very many different ways," Hulst said. "The advantage of every failure is that people now understand how necessary that oversight is," end quote. Prior to Concord's release, former president of Sony, Jim Ryan, unveiled the plan to release 12 live service games that would see its number cut in half around a year later. Hulst directly rebuked these comments, saying, quote, "The number of live service releases is not so important. What is important to me is having a diverse set of players, experiences, and a set of communities," end quote. Major figures within the company have continuously doubled down on their dedication to creating more games of the same model. One such figure includes Sony Chief Financial Officer, CFO, Lin Tao, who recently referenced multiple successful titles as why Sony remains unshaken in its direction. Quote, "Last year, Concord shut down, and this year, Marathon was postponed, so somewhat negative news has been coming out," said Tao. "But if we look at the past 5 years, 5 years ago, live service games were almost non-existent for PlayStation Studios. We now have Helldivers 2, MLB The Show, and Gran Turismo 7, and Bungie's Destiny 2. So we have these 4 live services contributing to sales and profits in a stable manner." So a lot of that, specifically the comment about increasing community engagement, Helldivers 2 is written all over that for me. And clearly, they still sniff that money. They still see how live service titles can make them a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And so they're not willing to cut cold turkey. They just decided to cut a lot of jobs and games. Things that don't affect them or their bottom line. So, whether this is actually going to be a lesson learned remains to be seen. Their live service titles.
This was a lesson learned. They learned a really hard lesson here.
Learning a lesson and implementing a lesson, two different things. Especially because Helldivers 2, not a flop. It was a, what do you call a surprise?
Surprise.
It was a surprise. They did not plan on it being that good.
It surpassed expectations.
Yeah. So the whole entire idea of focusing more on community engagement. Let's see how they could do that when it's not a more natural case of community engagement rather than one they really push forward. Because when you try to control these things, that's usually when the tragedy happens. Like for I had a perfect example lined up. Fuck.
Let me jump in here. What I hope PlayStation has learned in this is to, if you're gonna do live service titles, which they want to because it potentially makes them a lot of money.
Yeah.
You have to diversify the portfolio because you can't just give 6 games that are all the same because there's only so many players who are interested in that and are willing to give their time to that.
Yeah.
When they did that last big PlayStation, what do they call it? Showcase, the last PlayStation showcase, it was Concord, Fair Games, Marathon. All 3 of those games from the outside kind of look the same, and they cater to a market. They cater to a market that is already very popular and oversaturated, right? And so what I think they learned from Helldivers 2 is Helldivers 2 is a different kind of shooter. Aesthetically, it looks different. It's third person, not first person, and it's PvE, not PvP, and it's got a fun world and universe that players want to live and exist in, and there's a sense of like community through memification. You know, the big spreading democracy meme that players latched onto. You know, it was an idea that you can stick into their heads and go, this is why we care. You know, rip off Guardians of the Galaxy hero shooter doesn't have a stick in your head idea. It doesn't matter if the game is good or not. People don't care about it.
And you see that with the reception where it was on YouTube, a lot of negative scores, likes, dislikes on the reveal trailer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I think PlayStation has learned here is it's not about players not caring about live service games or that you can't find success in doing live service games. I think what they're saying here is we have to diversify the pool. We have to give players, to use their words, we have to give players unique experiences in live service for them to care. This is why it wasn't last week. I think the week before they were talking about live services again, and they included things like MLB The Show and
Gran Turismo. Yeah, it was in this post.
They reiterated it.
Yeah,
here.
I
definitely talked
literally.
because the last time we talked about it, we went, "That's weird that they use those titles."
It's literally that same quote.
And so now, okay, great.
Yeah.
And so now, great writing. I'm sorry. I was thinking about what I was going to say instead of listening to what you were reading. And so to us, that read as weird that they said, "Why these typically aren't considered live service games? Why are you considering them now?" Now it makes sense to me. Now they're going, okay, we're going to give you the third-person shooter experience with Helldivers 2. All of our first-person shooter tries have failed so far. We'll see if we'll have a success. We'll see if there's anything else cooking. From here, now we need to diversify. Let's have a racing sim. Let's have a sports game. Let's have, I don't know, something else. You know, something else that their studios are passionate about and cooking up and coming to the conclusion of, somebody's going to care about this. But the biggest part of all is we need to take lessons learned across all of our studios and bring them all in. And so we need to increase collaboration between these. I think this is a smart move for PlayStation. The monkey's paw to that is it sounds like we're sort of homogenizing all of our PlayStation studios here together. So it's not so much Santa Monica Studios. It's not so much Naughty Dog. It's not so much Insomniac. It's now more of kind of what Nintendo's been doing for the last couple of years now of PlayStation Studios.
Yeah.
And we are going to homogenize and sort of equivalate all of our studios together. So it's not so much of seeing the Naughty Dog brand and getting excited about that. And then when Firewalk comes out with Concord, you look at Firewalk and go, who the fuck is that? Why do I care? You know, now it's, let's put the PlayStation Studios brand in front. These other brands, let's devalue those so that people are excited for the next PlayStation Studios anything. Because PlayStation Studios now means community. It now means story-driven games. It now means single-player, multiplayer. PlayStation Studios means it all. Will the market receive that message? I don't know. Maybe not. Will PlayStation be able to pivot that hardly in that direction and still retain their community? Because the PlayStation community cares about Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
The PlayStation community cares about Insomniac. They care about Santa Monica. We don't really care about Haven Studios with Fair Games. Like, we just kind of don't. As much as the people on Twitter like to talk about it, we don't really care about Ben Studio that much because their last thing was just kind of whatever, you know? We care about the studios that have given us the hits over the last 7 years, you know? Which is a mean thing to say, but it's just true of how humans work, right? And I'm not saying I feel that way. I'm just saying that's
the market condition.
That's the market condition. That's how the people receive PlayStation. You know, I remember when PlayStation first made this move into live service of saying, hey, they want to get into that. I was talking to Phil about it, and he goes, but when I think about PlayStation, I don't think about multiplayer. That was the problem, you know?
Yeah.
And so now we need to figure out how we can get PlayStation to mean so much more than these things. I think Nintendo has quietly and not so announcement based because they like to keep things close to the vest. I think Nintendo has been going down this route for the last 5 years or so, where you stop seeing who's developing what game until you roll credits, you know, which I don't personally like. I think that's a slight to artists. I feel like if this industry were ever to unionize, that is something that these people should fight for is the studio recognition, because we are teams, we are people, we are individuals who are making a difference, and we want to be credited for that as such, and not just some part of some corporate conglomerate, that is pumping out great games. Why are these games getting pumped out? Because of the worker.
I mean, to go off that, they did mention how they want more studio interaction with one another. So that does seem to lend to their plan to not make it so definitive about a studio making a game. Of course, they always will, but way more rely on the PlayStation brand to push games out rather than just trusting studios. You see that with Bungie, them reducing their independence after originally promising that they were going to give them that, after Destiny started doing not satisfactory numbers to PlayStation 6.
And the live service stuff.
Yes, and live service stuff failing.
If Destiny was still on top of the world, and if the live service stuff worked, or if only one of those things were true, I believe Bungie would still have independence.
I do as well. Yeah.
And so, I mean, granted, but we live in the world where both of those things didn't happen. So, we live in the worst timeline for Bungie.
And frankly, we kind of do exist in a time where both could have happened, and they still could have done that.
Yeah. I also see we're gonna slim down on titles here. And I mean, to be fair, a lot of the most recent hits from PlayStation Studios have come from the ones where collaboration is involved. God of War Ragnarok, Bluepoint had heavy interaction and heavy assistance in developing God of War Ragnarok. And we've seen it throughout all of PlayStation history. Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Sucker Punch, like even all the way dating back all the way to like the PlayStation 2 days, had a lot of heavy, hey, what are you guys doing over there? How is that working? Oh, okay, great. PlayStation, I would assume, especially coming from Hermen Hulst, who has been a part of PlayStation for so long on every level, I assume is saying, hey, we work at our best when we all work together. Yeah. That is what PlayStation means. And so as an employer, we need to get back to, let's all work together. Let's not have these siloed off things where, Naughty Dog is over here killing in the game. Insomniac's over here pumping out great titles, title after title after title. But God of War Ragnarok came out essentially flawless, not too many glitches, not really any performance issues. Everybody loved it. A lot of people thought it was better than the last. Some people think the first one is still better, and that's totally fine. They're great games, both of them. And then we saw diminishing returns with Spider-Man 2, in terms of reception, because Insomniac was just over here working on Spider-Man 2, and it was great. Spider-Man 2 is still a great game, but we can see the impact, we can see the reception has changed, and so I think it's now time to, hey, let's get back to all of this cooperation to rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah, and we'll see if it actually works out, I think we'll see layoffs still.
Absolutely we will.
Stop that.
And I don't like the idea of we're losing our brand titles. Hey, I only care so much about the next Housemarque game because Housemarque is a studio that has delivered consistently, and their last one was fucking out of this world good.
Yeah.
That's why I care about what Housemarque is doing, I wouldn't care about what Housemarque is doing if I didn't know that it was Housemarque doing what they're doing. So, it leads to a potential future where just stop caring about developers. And I don't want to live in that future.
No.
But I do want to live in a world where people aren't losing their jobs. And if this is a way to mitigate that,
I guess
6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. You know what I'm
won't.
saying?
Every single time they do something where it's like, we're going to do this thing to make it where we don't lay off people. It never seems to ever result in.
Connor, we're going to move on to our final topic of the day. This is my second penny of the day.
Get all the gas out.
I've been playing Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. And ladies and gentlemen, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is a great game. I think a lot of the highs I have to say about this is built on the shoulders of giants. And in that, the original Snake Eater is a masterpiece of a game. It is what I believe to be the best game ever made. It's my personal favorite video game ever made. And there's a lot here that's really cool. But there's also a lot here that makes me go, could we have done more? There's a lot here that makes me go, that was kind of better in the original game. And vice versa. I could go down a checklist of things that I like better here or I liked better there. But really, all you have to know is if you've never played Snake Eater before, this is a great way to jump in. If you're a hardcore fan of Snake Eater, this is a fun, new-ish, polished level of paint that is entertaining for Snake Eater fans. they didn't mess it up. That's the main thing I can say here. Is it's not a far inferior version. It's not offensive to Snake Eater fans. It's not offensive to Kojima fans or Metal Gear fans. It satisfies, but it doesn't excite me like I wanted it to. It's not. I wanted this to be the definitive version of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, and it's just not. It is on par, if maybe just a touch lesser than the original, and that's for a number of reasons. First of all, let me start with the positives. The game is beautiful. It looks fantastic, and I think it controls quite well. It's still limiting in the ways that the original game is, that adds challenge but doesn't add frustration in controls, despite some moments where there's still some clunkiness going on here that I wish wasn't here. And I mean, what else can I say that's positive? I mean, the performances are great. The level design is great. The combat systems are fantastic. The survival systems are very, very immersive. But all of those things were true about the original game, and I still believe the original game holds up perfectly fine today. So it's really a what do you want here? I really appreciate that the game looks better, plays a little bit better, and comes with content that has been lost in later versions of the game's re-releases, like Snake vs. Monkey or the Guy Savage demo, which are back and recreated fully here. Those are really fun additions that I have not been able to play since the initial release of Snake Eater back in 2004. And now it's just back to that checklist of things of there are moments where the presentation and cutscenes don't hold up to what they were back in the day, but there are moments where they're better than they were back in the day, and I can appreciate that. The new ambiance and lighting and just general graphical fidelity really makes a lot of the cutscene-based fight scenes feel very intense, very vitriolic. That makes you go, oh, wow, that really, really hit. But because everything is so high res, the fidelity is so high, the character models are so detailed, sometimes when the animations don't come through all of the way, some of these characters kind of feel like they're falling flat now. My biggest example of this is the boss, a character who is more reserved. Because her facial animations are not crazy animated and they're more subtle, it just makes the character feel less impactful overall. But that's not true for every character. Colonel Volgin, I think, is deliciously villainous in this game. I think his portrayal is actually improved here. I think that way about Snake. I'm kind of caught in the middle between characters like Revolver Ocelot and Eva, where sometimes I think they're better, sometimes you nailed it the first time around. So it's just this kind of mixed bag of emotions as I play this game where I go, okay, some things that I liked in the original game are no longer here, and that bothers me. Some things that I didn't like about the original game have been improved, and I like that. And it makes this really fun to play. But at the end of the day, this is not making me put the original game on a shelf. This is instead giving me an alternate way to play the game, which is appreciated. And I can't help but escape this feeling that sometimes this game just feels like a game improved with fan-made mods. And I was really hoping for more punch than that. I like Delta Snake Eater a lot. I'm going to continue to play Delta Snake Eater. I will, in the future, bounce between the two versions. Sometimes I'll be in the mood for the original. Sometimes I'll be in the mood for this remake. But overall, it's not the definitive version of Snake Eater. It's just another version of Snake Eater. And I think we need more than that for a game of this caliber. Connor, what do you think?
Well, I played it for an hour.
Yeah.
A little over an hour,
Yeah,
maybe.
you played a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get a feel for the game, know how it compares to the original. You had said a second ago or at the beginning of your review, how it's a good way for new players to play the game. If you play this game instead of the original, valid. Totally valid.
Valid.
You are, by an objective measure, less of an appreciator of the arts.
No.
No. If you see your full knowledge, this case of having full knowledge of like the drawbacks, the pluses of the old game compared to the new one, and you decide, well, I just want to play a more modern feeling experience, aka kind of a more simplistic one, because Metal Gear Solid's control scheme is one where through all the games you kind of have to get used to it, especially if you haven't been playing for years and years. And so I understand what you're saying. those people, again, artistically inferior, because I do like how the original game looks. It adds to the flair, the style of a Kojima game, of a Metal Gear game.
Some of that Kojima character, some of that charm, some of that camp is a little lost here.
It is, and it's still there in great amounts, because I think that the decision to keep the old voice actors was the proper one. I know some people, you being one of them.
Well, they didn't even re-record it. It's the same dialogue.
Yeah, which I can see them having re-recordings, but the original one did so well, and that keeps the campiness of a Kojima game intact while still providing a different take on the narrative, being a bit more expressive, for example. I know there's a scene people compared a lot at the end of the game that I've seen that a lot of fans are not happy about due to the overexpression on Snake's face in a very poignant scene.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, take it or leave it. The point is, part of what made Metal Gear Solid 3, the original one, so enticing and so memorable is lost here. Replaced by a good game still, a solid one. But, yeah, I mean, again, artistically, to kind of flip over my original comment, it does kind of, not invalidate, but lessen the fact that they just did the same thing over again, voice-wise, and didn't try to change it up. Yeah. Of course, a lot of the voice actors are either going to be sounding completely different, probably dead, a couple of them, select ones. But, you know...
Are there dead voice actors?
There has to be.
I don't know.
There has to be like one or two, certainly in the Japanese version, if you're also thinking in that terms.
Yeah, okay.
But all that to say, it still plays very well. You know, as far as a modern game, it's a good stealth game. But again, a lot of this lends itself to being a Kojima game. So even though the shooting's
Kojima in his prime,
and
too.
good, good in his prime, you're right, his best game.
Yeah.
Was what I would say. And even though it feels good, it is more comparable to the many third-person shooters you would have played. A bit more challenge put up against it. Like, for example, the tranquilizer dart doesn't go straight.
There's a fall off to it and a little bit of bloom, so it'll sway from side to side depending on a number of factors.
Yes, which made it to where taking out enemies with it became a lot greater of a task, which I did appreciate, since it could be quite easy in the original game, since there's not really any real skill you got to use to actually hit your
There's
target.
a way in the original game to turn your tranquilizer pistol into a sniper rifle.
Yes,
you're just like, all right, well, I'm hitting headshots from a million miles away. I appreciate the nerfing of the tranquilizer gun in this game.
But it feels nice to feels good to shoot.
Shooting in general feels very good, much better than the original.
Unfortunately, I didn't use many weapons, but the M1911 and the XME8 for whatever,
like M4 style.
Yeah, the M4 style weapon. Both those were very fun to shoot.
Yeah.
It seems like basically the only thing about the original game that was improved upon is that, because very often you're running and gunning, you're not really engaging with the mechanics of.
Well, the visuals and the lighting are better.
What?
The visuals and the lighting are better.
That's true, yeah. But that's kind of...
I think audio design
audio
design in general is better.
You think lighting necessarily is?
Lighting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't
color grading
color grade, yeah.
is different. And so they have an option in this game. It's unlocked right from the start to where you can apply visual filters onto it. It's a bunch of fun, goofy ones or whatever. The one that matters is the one at the end of the list called Legacy mode. And that should be said. Between gameplay and graphical style, I guess you could say, they have this thing called new mode and legacy mode. New mode is where you have the new control scheme, the new color grading, the new lighting, all of that stuff. Legacy mode, it's still the same graphics and same like lighting and all that stuff, but the camera is back in top-down view. It's more of an isometric camera that like cuts and moves along with Snake. You don't have control over it, and the control scheme is closer to what the original control scheme is. It was advertised as legacy style being the exact same. It's not the exact same. I would say it's actually like a really crappy way to play the game, like, because they've just made some small changes, like putting shooting on triggers and just the way that the way that the foundation of the gameplay is built. Like, it's just a different feeling than what it was in the original game. I don't like legacy mode at all. So every time I play this game, I will be playing with new style.
Yeah.
Which is the more modern, more traditional third-person shooter camera behind your shoulder thing, and then you bring up the reticle and stuff like that, which I think all feels good and natural and good to use. I appreciate being able to crouch walk in this game. That might be an underrated thing where like it just feels so natural that you won't think about it or notice it, but that's something you couldn't do in the original game, and it's something that you're like, oh god, I wish this was here the whole time.
Yeah.
You know? There are a few moments where like the controls kind of like feel janky, or like I'm like the game's not doing what I want it to do.
Yeah.
Mostly when you're in prone.
Yes.
It's something to do with now the game has to play out all of its animations. So before there was the jank of like, and you've seen it in videos now where like Snake can literally just like 360 spin on his belly without moving. You know, he's just like planking and just spinning like a top. You can't do that anymore. He now has to like crawl around 100%. And then it's also reflected in moments like picking up bodies. In the original, it was just like a quick, like, all right, I'm just picking you up now. And there was a animation that took time to do that. But now, if you're like off center a little bit, Snake like grabs an arm, centers the body to him, and then picks up the body.
I noticed that.
And it's like stuff like that just kind of slows down the moment to moment gameplay in ways that hamper the player.
All for the sake of realism, which you're playing a Metal Gear Solid game. You
didn't 100% need that.
Yeah.
There's always been like a level of realism to these games, but like they let it go when it's time for it to be a video game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so now that it's like we've changed the balance of those things a little bit, and you feel it. So now it's just times where I go, I wouldn't have gotten caught there because I would have picked up the body faster and dragged it away faster just by the fact that I didn't have to adjust the body before I picked it up, right? I would have been able to make my shot there because I was easier to turn around while proning back in the original game, you know, and stuff like that. So again, there's ways around this that you can find out. I quickly discovered that every time you go into first person, it changes Snake's orientation. So if I'm laying on the ground, rotate the camera to face the other way, and then quickly press the first person button, he turns around, and I'm like, all right, great. And the shooting feels better in first person than it does in third person anyway.
Yeah.
I'm able to get more accurate shots in first person anyway, which is the way it should run. So that's the optimal. I just have to change how I input my buttons now.
Yeah.
You know? 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, you know? But the problem with something that you brought up is the color grade. There was like a green, tingy, sometimes almost yellowy look to the original game, and that added character to it, a style to it, a campiness to it. And in the default mode, that's gone. And it takes away some of the magical realism elements of the game, and it plants it too much in realism, which is why there were moments that feel out of place now. But there's a legacy filter where that color grading is back, and I have never had a filter change my experience with a game as much as I have here. Play with the legacy filter on. Do it. As soon as you enter the game, switch that over. You're just going to have a better experience. Like, I don't know how to put it in more eloquent words, but just do that favor for yourself, because it just reestablishes the character of the world of Snake Eater better than the default settings here.
And to that point, there is one thing that is, I would say, bad about this game. Now, it's unfair.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's not. Because, as we mentioned this entire review, this is a adaptation of a game that came out years ago.
Yep.
Right? And so you're working from a position where, okay, you have the original game, now change what you need to change to modernize it, enhance your experience. Everything we've talked about up until this point, regardless of what thoughts we might have, it's understandable why someone might say, well, I feel this different way. I think the definitive best way to play this game is the original. This one's generic cookie-cutter third-person shooter. I can get that.
I think it's easier to hand this game to a 16-year-old kid than the old game.
Yes,
you know,
but they can still play that old. They did back then.
They can.
They can do it now.
But I think if this is your way into fandom, like if this is your path into Metal Gear, hey, we've got the Master Collection right here with everything you ever wanted on it. You know? And we're going to get Master Collection Volume 2 at some point. They've said that, hey, that is going to be something that is worked on, right? So the original still exists. It's still available. It's still possible to play that in all of its glory.
Of course,
right? So if this is a way of like, hey, this game's too old, it doesn't look good, I don't feel immersed in the world for whatever reason, and I can't get around the controls.
That's the most understandable thing.
Totally valid for someone who wasn't there to feel that way, right? I was, so I don't feel that way. But if you feel that way, here's Delta.
Yes.
It plays kind of like Phantom Pain plays, just a little more restricted.
As it should. But all of that to say, two things are definitively, because you have this is my general take when it comes to adaptations and things like this. If you have a framework that you're working off of and your new thing makes one of those aspects objectively worse, you don't even have the benefit of, oh, you did your own thing. You basically are piggybacking off the game itself without actually doing something good, which is more damning than if you were to make something on your own and fail and just be like, hey, you tried, you didn't succeed. That's the name of the game. That's how you trial and error.
I think that's
I think
that's too harsh.
I understand. What I'm referring to specifically is not, and that is the menu and the intro.
Brother.
All of those had no reason being the way they were.
Brother, that main menu you're talking the main menu?
Yeah.
Yeah, awful.
It's the original one for those that don't know. It's this image that plays out. It's different colors each time.
The title screen specifically.
Yeah. Yes. It'll be Snake fighting with some GRU operative, some Russian soldier.
Yeah.
And it's done in this slow-mo style, this cool music's in the background. It's visually striking, and you constantly get something new with it. It's in like this camo pattern, but the color changes. Sometimes it'll be like this red and black.
Well, and you can press buttons on the controller
yeah.
that change the camo pattern, that change the colors, that change the animation speed.
Yeah.
So you can make it speed up or even slow down. And then there's another button you can press that has like different graphics go across the screen. So like jet planes will fly across the screen, or AK-47s will fly across the screen, or the peace sign will fly across the screen and stuff like that. Like it's just like that's that level of character that it's just gone here. Like it's just not there. It's a very bland when you first open the game.
Yeah.
It's just wilderness, hit start, bland menu. I will say, slight spoiler. This does do the thing where after you beat the game, the title screen, the press start to play screen changes. And this is one of the most effective versions of the main title screen changing after you beat the game that I've ever seen. I think there's some other ones that do it better, of course. Like I think Last of Us Part 2. Did Uncharted 4 didn't change. What else changed? Did Last of Us 1 change?
I don't think so.
I think it went from like day to like mid-afternoon or evening.
I can believe that.
Last of Us Part 1 or whatever. Stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there is a change, not to give it away, but there is a change like that here that I really, really appreciate. I'm glad it's there. At the cost of what we had, I mean, you're already so much of a one-to-one.
Yeah.
Why did you change that? You know?
Yeah, you have a reason to, yeah.
Why didn't you change anything else? You know? Why is the cure menu still this? You know, where the cure menu is probably the worst part about the original game, where it's just a matter of you're just slamming medical supplies into your body or whatever. It's still that. You're still just slamming medical supplies. It doesn't matter what order you're in. So if I get shot, I can disinfect the wound, stop the bleeding, bandage it, and then use a knife to dig out the bullet. What? What are we doing? Or, you know, if you get cut, I can bandage it and then suture the wound. What? Why is that not, like, at least put in, like, logical order now to at least make you think about what you're doing in that menu? And on top of that, they've, this will transition into something that I think is better here. But for the cure menu specifically, they've slammed all of the things together, which in the original game, it was physical wounds and then like chemical wounds or like poison. So like there was a tab for if you had a tummy ache or if you ate something poisonous or something else, right? Here's the menu for all of the like internal wounds that you have. And then here's a menu for all the external wounds, like broken bones, cuts and bullet wounds and burns and stuff like that. And so you would use the different menus, and it was it was intuitive. So like it was easy to get around. It wasn't hard. And now those are all one thing. So you have to scroll through all of these fucking things to get to the one thing that I need, and then move on to the next thing. Now, granted, not that big of a deal because more often than not, you're healing yourself from cuts and bullet wounds and broken bones anyway. All of those things are all together. Like, you're not like, I'm not going to the bandage and then scrolling over 7 things to get to the suture kit or the disinfectant or anything like that. You know what I mean? I am, however, scrolling over 7 things to get to antidote to cure poisoning. And I'm like, I didn't have to do that back in the day. However, the counter to that is all of the in-game menus, I believe, are simplified and generally better here. Camouflage has been put to the a quick select D button, but you can still jump to the in-depth camouflage that lists them all. So you have both for whatever you need. The quick select is based off of like the last like 10 things that you've used. So you still have to dive it. You have to dive into the camouflage menu at some point. But they've even simplified that by, in the old game, you had to hit pause, scroll down one, camouflage. Now, do you want to select face or uniform? Uniform was on the bottom. That's what you changed 90% of the time. So you would scroll down another one and hit that. All of that's gone. Camouflage was the first option on the thing, and both are available to you at one time. You just got to press the shoulder buttons to switch between the two.
Yeah.
You know, it's just faster. You know, same thing with backpack. Backpack was how you selected your inventory. That was quickly accessible for you in gameplay, in combat. And you have weapons and items as two different categories. In the original game, scroll down 3 slots now this time. Hit backpack. Do you want to change your weapons or do you want to change your items? Pick one because you got to back out of that menu if you want to change the other one. And then it's like that. Same thing. Backpack, now it's just one button pressed down because camouflage is at the top like it should be. It's one button pressed down. Camouflage, or I'm sorry, backpack. What do you want? Items or weapons? Shoulder buttons to switch between the two on the fly. All of this is better. You can, it's easier to quick select who you're calling on the codec through a D-pad button. It's weird that it then just takes you back to the normal codec screen that you had in the original game, but it is faster now to call the specific person I want to call.
Which is the point of that, yeah.
It's faster. It's more stylized. It looks cooler. You know, I think overall it's a net positive what they've done to the menus here.
Okay, yeah.
The in-game menus.
That's pretty fair. I would disagree just on the radio, the codec.
Yeah.
It just seems that part's almost unnecessary to me.
Well, I like that it's the little dial thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's cute. And I like that when you select a person, the person's portrait comes up.
Yeah.
You know, it's cute. It's a nice visual thing. I think it's weird that you then go to the old menu to do that. Or like when you click confirm, you then go to the old menu. I do like that Snake's character model is like fully there now. It's not like covered up by a weird effect that they had in the original game. You can see the uniform that he's in, the face paint he has on, even down to like if he has a cut on his face that you've gained, it's there now too. Yeah. I like that the wounds you get throughout your experience stay on your body. So by the end of the game, dude, I had burns and cuts and bullet holes and scrapes on my face that I didn't have at the beginning of the game, and those are unique to my playthrough. I got a burn on my right arm. That burn was there for me at the end of the game, and that was the burn I took in the fight that I got burned in.
When they were talking about features in the year-long lead-up, I remember that one specifically.
It's cool.
That's cool, yeah. I'm glad it actually worked.
Yeah. I'm very, very impressed with the small things like that. Could we have figured out more things like that to implement here? I don't know. Listen, it's a tricky place to be in from a creative perspective because this entire franchise is perceivably built on the shoulders of gaming's biggest auteur, right? There was a huge falling out between the company who owns that IP and the auteur years ago. So people don't like that company. The company has a history of scummy business practices that followed that falling out, right?
Pachinko machines,
right? Leadership changed. They seem to be coming back into video games. They seem to be doing more. I think what they're doing with Silent Hill is great. I wish this was equivalent to the Silent Hill 2 remake.
Yeah.
Where it was like, hey, you're going through the same events. It's essentially the same story. And almost beat for beat the same story. And most of the levels are still here. The locations are the same, but we are greatly expanding on the levels. They're bigger. They've got new things about them, new enemies, new enemy placements. I wish that happened here, where the level design feels constricting. You know, it feels like I'm going through the motions in some of these areas and screens and so forth.
Yeah.
I still like the structure of here's a level. It's sort of like a puzzle of how you interact with this level. That's cool. Could the levels have been bigger? Could there have been more levels? Could they have stitched in new things in between? Levels where level design is intrinsic, like there's a section in the game where you fall into some dark caves and you're lost in the dark and you have to like find your way around. But we have entirely changed that so that it feels new because that's the challenge, is getting around, right? Yeah. And so like, oh shit, this path used to work. It no longer works. Fuck. Okay, now me as a player with experience has to figure out something new, you know? Could we have figured out a way to do something a la Resident Evil HD with the Crimson Heads? Could there have been something like that in a New Game Plus or something like that? I don't know. What I do know is this is Snake Eater again with some cool new additions, and some of the flavor has been lost.
Yeah.
That is what I have here. So I'm stuck with this sort of middling reaction where there's things that I love, and there's things that I'm like, well, that's not as good.
Like?
And it's not even like it's bad. It's just not as good.
Yeah, no.
You know?
Well, except the opening. That's the only
I don't
thing.
like the opening.
It sucks.
I don't like, and it's not so much the vocal performance. I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
That is one where it's like
I
forget her last name. Her first name is Cynthia. She has made it her own, and she has done her take on the theme, and I really like what she's doing. The problem is, in my opinion, the instrumentation is very lacking and not adding that extra oomph to punch up her performance.
Cynthia Harrell. That's what it is.
She does great.
She does.
Love you, girl. You're doing a great job.
Girl, she's a woman. Fucking disgusting pig.
Okay.
Say woman. No. Say you're an amazing woman. Say it.
Connor, sometimes there's this thing called slang.
Well,
and common like vernacular and stuff. And I'm gonna need you to get with the program.
he's like 60 years old.
Yes.
I don't think you would call anyone, even in that case, girl. I think that's the one exception.
I've worked with 60-year-olds where I'm like, girl, what are you talking about?
Oh, well.
You know? It's just
Disrespect.
embarrassing for you. Is the thing.
See, that's the thing. It's not.
No, because you're not feeling it, you know. But let someone meet you in real life and be like, hey man, that was kind of silly what you did, and then you'll be like, oh okay, you know.
People have weird.
The instrumentation's not as punched up, but the big sin for me, the visuals are just not good.
It's more than spoilers. That's why I wouldn't recommend it to a first-time player. It shows you things like moments that are cool in
there's
the
a
franchise.
There's a key moment where Snake will say takes a fall, right? And it's a very tense moment where you're like, oh shit, like stakes are high, something might happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in minute 5 of the game, I know exactly what happens there because you showed me, right? And so, like, that's kind of disappointing that happens. There's visuals and scenes and moments that, like, are so striking the first time you see them. But here in this version, the first time I see them is in this intro. I'm like, I didn't want to see that character take their jacket off in that field here. I wanted to see it at the end. Now, granted, I'm speaking from a place of privilege where I understand the context of what's going on. So maybe I feel that way. Maybe a new player wouldn't feel that way. And by the time they get to those moments, they have forgotten what was in the intro. Kind of hard because the intro plays every time you boot up the game. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong. But like, it's like a very like heavily inspired like 007 intro type thing. And the game's called Snake Eater. So we got like skeleton snakes swiveling on the screen and like coming at the camera and like eating the camera and stuff like that. The snakes don't look as good, and they're not as threatening. They don't contribute to the mood or the tone of the game. And they're like there's text that goes across the screen and like sort of sways like a snake, just like it did in the original game. Something's wrong with the frame rate, or the way it's animated. I'm struggling to read the text on the screen. I didn't have that problem in the original.
It seems to me it's a case of limitations to not being able to have expensive CGI when they were doing the original one, so they made do. They put a lot more visual flair on it. While this one, it seems like the images are empty that I'm seeing. Like, there's not as much use of color. I don't know if I just can't remember what the original one looks like.
It's kind of there. No, the colors. I mean,
it's like not as entrancing.
I think the problem is that the color moved on to the and the scenes that they showed like in game were created for the intro. So there's a scene where they've broken the camera and like it's like a close up on a soldier's face, and then Snake pops up into view behind him, and you go, oh shit. It's not something that happens in the game. You know, no. It's something that they've gone in and manufactured with the gameplay and the engine of the game, right? Here, they're just showing you cutscenes.
Yeah.
And so I almost wonder if there's like a weird technological thing that like, because we're showing these cutscenes, it's messing with the animation and the frame rate of the text and the snakes and so forth. And the cutscenes aren't being affected color grade wise by the rest of the visuals. Yeah. So it's like, it's just the normal lighting of the cutscenes matched with the cool little red and green like blotches that we're putting on the screen, and I'm sitting here like, this isn't meshing together. All the way down to the very first thing you see in this intro is newspapers and the text floating off the screen. That effect looked better in 2004. I don't even understand how that's possible, but it did. So yeah, this intro is very much lacking, except for Cynthia's performance. She's awesome.
Only matters as much as it does because the original is so good.
Yeah.
And you just get disappointed.
It's so iconic.
Yeah.
Like, like it's one of those things that like after you're done playing the game, you go and look up on YouTube and just watch that.
Yeah.
You know, you're not even looking at the rest of the cutscenes or anything. You're just watching that intro. You're listening to that song. You know, and the original song had such bombastic horns and drums and things coming in and instrumentationally to boost the vocal performance, which was also great back in the day. To boost that up. Here, Cynthia is the only thing that's up there. Everything else is falling short.
Yeah,
and because of that, it's bringing her performance down. You know,
she doesn't deserve that.
She doesn't deserve that because she was killing it.
What
man.
a thrill! Everyone knows where the song's going from there.
And I know that's what's happening because there's an iconic moment with a ladder where the vocals come in and it's fucking perfect.
Because it's different in that case.
Yeah. Well, it's just her.
Yeah,
you know?
well, I didn't know if they were using the same.
No, yeah, they use Cynthia's performance and not the original performance in that moment. I will say the way Cynthia performs it makes it go a little longer. So like in the original game, it's timed perfectly that by the time, in those who know, when you get to the top of the ladder, the song ends.
Yeah. They didn't do that?
You get to the ladder a little earlier. You get to the top of the ladder a little earlier.
Isn't the whole thing when you get to the ladder, it goes...
Yeah.
That's bad. That's not good. That's
because I was sitting there, you can watch it because I played the whole thing and I put the whole playthrough on YouTube.
Yeah.
I was just jamming out, not paying attention, and I heard footsteps, and Cynthia was still singing, and I was like, whoa!
This is not right.
Just for a few moments, I almost left the area, and I imagine cut the song off early.
Yeah.
Because you're able to do that, you know? So it's just like, we could have just edited that just a little bit.
And it's those little things that make it to where I think it's definitively, you've already said it.
Yeah.
It loses something.
Yeah.
This remake.
Yeah.
It's why I would just always recommend you play the original.
There's a fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That has been diminished here. I'm not going to say it's gone.
No.
Because, and again, there's still moments in this game that are the iconic moment of Snake standing up from the grass at the beginning of the Virtuous mission, pulling out his gun, pulling out the knife, commencing virtuous mission now. That's better here.
Well,
because the higher fidelity character models and the more detailed animations just give it a little bit more of that swagginess that they were going for that they couldn't hit back in the day. They hit it here, you know? And then the boss is on screen, and she's so flat in her animation performance that it's making the vocal performance seem boring as well. And before this remake, Lori Allen as the boss is one of my favorite vocal performances of all time. And here I found her boring, and that is offensive.
Not because of the vocal performance, but because of the animation.
Because of the animation, you know, and it's holding it back because the animation's there's not enough just face movement going on, and that's for a lot of the characters across the board. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Eva, I think it works because that's a very subtle character that when she smiles, it means something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
With Snake, when he smiles, it means something. There are moments that I can pinpoint that I go, I wish his smile was a little bigger there. But there's also moments where I go, look at that cute little smirk that he's got going on. We couldn't do smirks in 2004.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of good things to value about this game.
Yeah.
Even for my little time playing.
It's literally just a checklist of things of moment to moment to moment to moment that you go down and you go, this was better, it's better now. This is better, it was better, it's better now. And you just can go down that throughout the entire game. But the problem is we've had so many examples of phenomenal remakes that don't go down the checklist like this, you know, and are just definitively better. I will never, ever, ever play and it can be for one remakes like this. I will never play the original Last of Us ever again. Why would I? Last of Us Part 1 is better. It's prettier. It's got better animations, better lighting, and it's just all the way around the definitive way to play the first Last of Us game, right?
Not this one.
Not this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up the original Snake Eater again and play that again when I want to get that kick. And especially if you're going to be this 1-for-1, pricing it at full price.
Yeah, that's the other bit.
That's a problem, man. This game is 12 hours long. You know, 15 for new players. I'm a very experienced player, but I was taking my time, enjoying it, fucking around with mechanics, killing dudes. So, you know, I took a little bit. So this game is 12 to 15 hours long for new players, right? Somewhere around there. It's hard to justify $70 for that experience for a game that's so 1-to-1 and it's a remake, and you can get pretty much the same experience, if not a little bit better, for $60 with 2 other masterpieces attached to it. You know what I mean?
Konami wants that money.
And though I appreciate Snakes versus Monkeys coming back, that's a lot of fun. I play around a little bit with Snakes versus Monkeys back in the day, but after the original version launched, it never made another appearance again. So the Subsistence version that came out on PS2 didn't have Snakes versus Monkeys, and that's the version we've gotten in every re-release ever since then. So this is the first time we've been able to play Snakes versus Monkeys in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's a good time. They put Astrobot in all of the levels to like make you go, oh, look at Astrobot there, you know? And it's like just like a fun little thing. I've been joking with Phil of how like, man, between Astrobot and Metal Gear, man, Ape Escape's kind of fun.
That's funny.
So like that's great. The Guy Savage demo is back, not only back, completely remade by Platinum Studios of all places. So it's better than the original game. The original game was definitely this is a vertical slice. This is all we have. You could just attack enemies. It was weird, right? There's a fucking game here. Like it's a demo. Like, and I'm like, whoa, this is really fucking cool. I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into something, right? Yeah. And so to have those two things back, something we have not had access to in 20 years, is fantastic. Not enough to justify $70. I would feel a little bit better about it if we had the multiplayer Fox Hunt mode at launch. Yep. We don't. That's coming later this year. It wouldn't change my grading on this game. It wouldn't change my feelings about this game. And I still think $70 is a bit much to ask for this game in 2025, especially when we've had examples of games that are like this releasing at cheaper value. The Ratchet & Clank 2016 remake / movie tie-in game that they had launched at like $40-50. You know, when games like Spider-Man Miles Morales are launching at $50 and tell a new story, it's weird that this one's $70, man. And especially with releasing with day one DLC with the what do you call them? Like a costume pack? It's a costume pack, essentially, with all the different new camouflages and stuff, which you can get if you get the $80 version of the game, which is great. So instead of spending an extra $10 or an extra $15, you're spending an extra $10. Cool. But that's day one DLC. That's a tactic I don't think we've really had, at least not to this extent, in a while.
Yeah.
You know? And so it just all of this kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth where like to get the full experience here, I got to pay $80 and it's not definitively better than the original and there's nothing new here. Like it would be different if like there was new modes or a new way to play the game that I was hoping for with New Game Plus or things like that, you know? But there's not. It's just Snake Eater again with like even saying bells and whistles is giving the game more credit than it's due. It's got new ribbons on it. Yay, you know? And so, yeah, I was hoping for more. I was expecting more, but people are saying on PC the performance isn't great. I'm playing on PlayStation, on a base PlayStation 5. My performance has been pretty good. Some occasional frame rate drops, nothing too noticeable or intrusive. The game crashed once in the beginning of my playthrough, never crashed again. That's totally acceptable.
Startup issue, probably.
Something like that, right? Yeah. Or, you know, like the game just getting used to it. Maybe there was a day 2 patch that fixed it or something. I don't know. But I never had another crash again. And you know, even replaying that segment, it didn't crash again. So, like, it was the one time. So, for me, performance has been great. You know? That was based off of a conversation of... Lost the point. Mm-hmm. It was something $70 performance. The game still has merit. You know, the performance has been solid for me. The game looks great. I think so a lot of the music has been re-recorded. It's still the same, but like the mixing is different in or maybe not re-recorded. Maybe it's just a different mix or whatever. I like the mix here for the music. There's this weird thing that happens where like characters are talking to each other in scene, and that is mixed at a certain level. And then it cuts to, we'll call them flashback cutscenes, where like we'll show real life footage of you know, army tanks or the Kremlin and stuff like that. And the volume for those cutscenes are higher. I think those have just straight up just been ripped from the original and put in here, and they haven't been tweaked with at all.
Yeah.
Other than the visuals are definitely higher resolution than they were. It's the difference of like 480p to 1080. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, at least it's 1080 here, you know? But like, same pacing, editing, everything. And I'm like, man, we couldn't figure out any way to tell this story a little bit better? Like, okay.
I guess we can kind of expect what would happen if they do more remakes. of past Metal Gears.
And this brings me back. Actually, I don't agree.
Mm.
This brings me back to the conversation we started, and I got a diatribe of, from a creative point of view and the state of Konami today and the public perception of Konami today, I understand why they went this route. And I think this is the safest and best bet that they could have made as a company to go this route. People wouldn't accept a new Metal Gear Solid game today.
Yeah.
They just flat out wouldn't. The loyalty to Kojima's too high. We'd all be like, nope, fuck you, fuck Konami, this, that, and the third, right? So remaking is the way to go. Which one do you remake? Well, one is held on this pedestal of gaming titans that changed the world, right? So that's risky. And we would have to do a lot more legwork to get that game to work or to remake that game, even if it is one for one. We'd have to do so much more work to get it to function in a modern sense, right? 3, more advanced, still beloved, doesn't have the baggage of 2, where 2 is so dependent upon the first game. It's a standalone story. It's the beginning of the Metal Gear saga chronologically. Like, there's just a lot of reasons to love it. Even though in a lot of circles it's held as the best Metal Gear Solid game, it's not the one that made Kojima.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, like, there's a lot of reasons as to why this makes the most sense. And we are going to, as best we can, garner fan appreciation, get them back into the fold, get people excited about Metal Gear Solid again, which this has done. People are excited about Metal Gear Solid again, including myself. I'm seeing a lot of TikToks of new players, old players, all really enjoying this. There is a percentage of people who are disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. That's a perfectly reasonable reaction to have. And so now we have laid the groundwork of, okay, see, we are trying to uphold the legacy. We are doing our best to give you what you want here. I think we continue with remakes. I think it's going to be, I think Delta is our branding for the remake series. So it's going to be Metal Gear Solid Delta Peace
Sons
Walker.
of Liberty.
Metal Gear Solid Delta Sons of Liberty. I think for the first game you go like Metal Gear Solid Delta Shadow Moses or something, or Twin Snakes maybe.
Yeah.
You know? And I think from here, now we use this as a launching board to have a little bit more confidence. We have a little bit more confidence in our team. We have a little more confidence from the public to say, okay, we're willing now for you to make changes, for you to go in new directions. Now, which direction do they go from here? I don't know. It could go anywhere. We could go to Peace Walker because it's the next step in the timeline. We could go to Metal Gear Solid 1 because it's the one people care about. I don't think you don't go to 2, and you certainly don't go to Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
You know? So, from my perspective, you go to Peace Walker or you go to 1. Or we get really creative because it's not held as dearly in people's hands, and it would allow us so much more freedom because of the amount of work we would have to do, but it's so much more work. We remake Metal Gear on the MSX.
Yeah.
That one's so old that most Metal Gear Solid fans haven't played it. It's so old and like bare bones in terms of content and storytelling and things that we have the luxury of hiring actors to make choices and have their definitive stamps on characters, right? We have the option to rewrite scenes to make them more emotionally impactful and build a story out in a way that narratively hits in a modern sense, right? And we can play with level design the way we want. We can incorporate boss fights the way we want. We can create basically an actual new game and bring that original title up in the conversation of the rest of the Metal Gear Solids. You know,
That'd be a good idea.
that would be a good idea, but that would require so much more work.
And they might just want to make a new game at that point.
Exactly, right? But we're not in a place where we can do that.
No.
You know, I'm still not on board for a new Metal Gear Solid without Hideo Kojima. Like, that's where I am personally. So I'm down for a Metal Gear Solid 1 remake where we're going to change some things. But nothing crazy, just a few things. We're going to make levels bigger. We're going to change controls. We're going to do all these things. I'm okay with that. We can change some of that. I get a little hesitant when you start talking about changing cutscenes. That's when I start going, I don't know about that. But this bought you some grace. Don't fuck it up. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know down in the comments below how you felt about Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Are you playing it? Have you played it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Did we miss something that you wanted to talk about here? I think we went pretty in depth on that.
I think so.
There
as
wasn't
well,
a lot more left there. And make sure you like, subscribe, and follow for more. Of course, this was at the end of the Two Penny Gamescast episode 265. So make sure you put your comments down below. so that you can put your own 2 cents into next week's topics. And until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye. Thanks for coming.